morning and welcome back to the pod. Hi, guys. I hope everyone is doing fabulous. I'm coming to you from sunny and hot Dubai. I am taking a little staycation. I mean, not really because I don't live here, but just taking a little spring break, I guess. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. And I've been here for a few days already. And I love Dubai. I have been coming here for a decade now. My first trip here was 2015. This was my first trip, my first country that I ever visited where English was not like the main language. But no, that doesn't sound accurate because I feel like I had been to France before I had been here, but maybe I didn't. I'm not sure. I just remember coming here and just being so in awe, so impressed, so wowed, and shocked and overwhelmed and all of the feels. And I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions about Dubai, all of which are valid, most of which I don't care. I love coming here. And yeah, that's basically my little intro. So I'm coming to you from Dubai. It is currently 34 degrees. For any Americans listening, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I'm so sorry. But I'm guessing it would be like in the 90s. It's hot. That's basically the fucking point. It's hot. The other day it was like 40, which is like crazy to me. But yeah, hi from Dubai. It's hot. And let's get into the pod. So, as you can tell from today's title, it's another episode of the Sisterhood Chronicles, and we are talking about friendship. The Sisterhood Chronicles, for you guys who are just kind of joining us, is a mini series that I have within the Sage sorority that specifically talks about friendships and everything surrounding women friendships. And we know that women friendships are so important and they are literally a huge catalyst to women's happiness and longevity in life. And there's so many things that are tied into a woman having good people around her that does not include her partner. And I think that we are doing such a good job now as women in our 20s, 30s, and beyond in talking about this. And it's something that I'm deeply passionate about and deeply interested in. So today, we're talking about something slightly different. It's that what can we as women learn from the way men do friendship? And like I said, this was inspired by article in The Guardian that basically dissected male versus female friendship styles, the strengths and the blind spots. So we're going to get into that. And for those that want to look it up, the article is called Be More Vulnerable, What Women Can Teach Men About Friendship and What They Can Learn from Men. And it's by Claire Cohen. And it actually came out on October 11th, 2024. Question mark, the truth about female friendship. So I read this article and I'm not going to go through the entire article, but I'm going to like summarize it and we're going to get into my thoughts. So essentially, like the tagline for the article is banter, backslaps, and no falling out or bearing your soul and obsessing over BFFs. When it comes to friendship, men and women tend to do things differently. So what can they learn from each other? And for anyone who's not in the UK and not familiar with the term banter, banter is, I would say, like the North American equivalent of like chemistry, right? And we always kind of phrase chemistry in like a romantic sense, but you have chemistry like with your friends. So I feel like chemistry is the best way to describe banter. But in the UK, banter is like, oh my God, like everyone cares about it with like friendships, romance, banter. He's got to have banter. We have to have good banter. He's got to have bants, like very, very important. So just a little like cultural nuance for you. So the article explores the fundamental differences in how men and women typically approach friendship. So women en masse favor intimate, emotionally vulnerable, one-on-one relationships. We love a girl gang, but we also like having good one-on-one relationships. And even within that girl gang, we want to feel emotional closeness. That's like very common. While men often gravitate towards group-based, activity-led friendships, so you want to think about sports predominantly, drinking, stuff like that, like not to like water it down, but I'm just using like kind of what comes to the top of my head with less emotional discourse. It's like that old adage of like the two couples that are friends and they've been friends for years. The two women are friends, the two men are friends, they hang out all the time. And then one night the woman's like, oh my God, can you believe that so-and-so's getting a divorce? And the husband's like, what? He never even said anything. It's like, that's like the depth, right? Like you can have a group of friends and you are so, as a woman, you are so close to this other woman. You guys are like one breath away from a gynecological appointment together, and the two men could not be further apart, right? Very, very common. The article challenges common assumptions and invites us to consider what each gender might learn from each other to create more balanced and resilient connections. Like, I'm not gonna hold you. I am not the one to tell you what women can learn from men. Like, that is not my ministry in this life. I'm just gonna be honest. Truth is truth. And I do think that there are things women can learn from men when it comes to friendships. Now, on average, do I think that women do friendship better than men? Absolutely. The fact that data supports that women live longer and are happier with the quality of friendships in their life, not if they get married, not if they're a mother, what else do we need? The fact that there is essentially a male loneliness epidemic because men have built a box around themselves and then continue to live in that box even though they're struggling, what else do we need? So I just want to leave that there. That's just a little post-it on the post-it board so that when we go through the rest of the article, you guys just always know my North Star, which is, yes, there are things we can learn from men, but they are very selective, very selective. Anyways, it touches on the fragility of emotionally intense female friendships, the emotional limitations and cultural conditioning, of course, within many male friendships, the pitfalls, obviously, of friendship hierarchy and BFF culture. And that is something that I feel like is more obvious to me now as a woman in my 30s, because I know lots of women that will say they don't have a best friend and they probably will never have a best friend, and they will actively not seek that out, which I find very interesting and obviously a radical difference from being in your 20s and in your teenage years. I'm just going to interrupt the podcast for this one little brief message. If you are loving this episode of the Sage Sorority, share it with a friend. Tell a friend to tell a friend. The best way to grow the show is to share it with a like-minded person who will love all the gift of gab that I have to offer. Like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a cheeky review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. And finally, the importance of physical affection, proactive effort, and graceful exits, regardless of gender. We're going to talk about graceful exits, especially when it comes to women. So these are 3 quotes that really stuck out to me that I want to kind of expand on. So the first quote is from Max Dickens, and it's, "Sometimes not discussing serious stuff is a form of empathy." I find this very fascinating because off the top, it kind of goes against how a lot of women value their closest friendships, right? And it's more of one of these things where it's like, oh, like let's think on that for a little bit. That kind of scratches my brain in a very interesting way. And obviously, it's the idea that friendship doesn't always have to be a deep dive. The value of presence over necessarily like constantly probing. And are we in a situation where we are mistaking emotional labor for true intimacy? So I think that this is a really interesting point because it can be true. Like, we're not talking about someone being interested in you for like a malicious sake, a nosy sake. We're not talking about that. But just maybe sometimes letting them come to you when it comes to a level of intimacy. I think where it gets complicated for women is that we, and I will 1000% put myself in this box, is that reciprocity and a friendship being reciprocal to me is very important. Now, that doesn't mean it's always going to be the exact same thing. Like, say I always cook for my friends, I expect them to always cook for me, but then I'm missing the part that my friends maybe are not good cooks or don't find cooking interesting. It's like that really doesn't make sense because you are projecting like what you're doing onto someone who's completely different from you, right? That's not fair. Now, it might be that I always cook for my friends because it's a way that I want to show my love for them, but my friends often host, so they're always opening up their doors to me, or my friends make the reservations or whatever. Like, that's still reciprocity. That's still a reciprocal friendship because they are making effort, but they're making effort in their own way. Now, you can say that's not enough for me or that doesn't work for me, and at that point you have to decide if that flaw is worth keeping the friendship or not. But what this is talking about and how I'm tying it in is that you might feel comfortable sharing more of yourself or sharing more of different situations with your friend than your friend might do with you or at different times. And it's important to not take that personally or that your relationship is lacking. If we have emotional trust and emotional intimacy, I have no problem like having a deep dive, being very woo, very spiritual, being vulnerable. Like obviously there's levels to things and I've definitely hit levels where I do struggle, but for the most part, like I'm a pretty fluid, candid person, especially when it comes to like our emotional state and our emotional mindset. However, there is nothing that I love like being able to be with friends and just be silly, be lighthearted, have jokes. And I actually find now that I'm thinking about it, I probably have more friends that I can be more serious with than I have friends that I can be lighthearted with, which is kind of strange, right? Because you would assume that, well, being lighthearted and being like jokey is like very surface level and pretty easy, but it's like I have more friends that I feel like I connect with on a more serious level than I do like on a lighthearted level. And when I'm with my friends or peers that I can joke with and whatever, it's truly like unlocking a different part of my personality and maybe one that doesn't come out as often. So basically the point of this is to think about like, hey, not everything has to be super serious and super intense all the time. And then also on the flip side, when I said, are we mistaking emotional labor for intimacy? Are you also being the one who's always dumping? Like, do you see that friend as something other than your place to just like drop your bags after a long day, after a long week, after a bad breakup, after your guy treats you poorly for the 40 millionth time? Like, friendship should be a space where you're both giving and taking. Like, it's a parallel street, right? Like, you guys are both going back and forth with each other in ways that feel safe and that feel secure and in ways that feel balanced. Okay, next point. Women's friendships are more fragile, prone to disruption, and easily destabilized. So this is from Professor Robin Dunbar. Okay, yes. You know what? I'm not even gonna like say like I don't because it's actually true. When I respond to the quote instead of reacting to it, this is one of my favorite things to remind myself and also check people on, especially as women. You need to learn to respond to something instead of reacting to it. And I could literally do a whole podcast on this, but my reaction to that is like, that's not fair. That's not true. But okay, it's like, don't react to it. Don't take it personally. Don't let your ego cloud your thought. That is true. Like, women's friendships are more fragile. Like, girls be falling out all the time. Men will have friendships for 50 years. Like, which firstly, that is probably the first thing in my own life that I noticed that I was super jealous of. Like, any guy that I've ever dated has usually had like a friend in his life since like childhood that they're still friends. And I'm just like, wow. And I'm like, fucking hell, that is so nice. That is so lovely. Jealous. I love it. I do have friends from my childhood, but they're not like my go-to, like we're on the phone like every few days or whatever. Like, it's just not. And I do think that there's something so nice about that because you can never make a new old friend, right? Now, as someone who has always kind of made new friends in adulthood because I've been in different places in different spaces, there's a lot of beauty in that too, because I'm very grateful for the women I have in my life that know me in this iteration. Sometimes it's a bit of a mind fuck because it's like I have to like tell my friends, and I have said, I'll mention a story or a reference or an experience and they will laugh or be like, oh my God. And I will be like, guys, I lived a whole ass life before I got here. And it's true. Like, especially with my move to London, I'll often tell some of my friends, like 10 years ago, I was doing XYZ and it's like, holy fuck. And it's like, yeah, I lived a whole big, juicy life before I got here. Not that my life here isn't juicy, but it's almost like my life didn't just start here. I was doing so many other things before I got here. So it's funny little like situation for them. And then it's kind of funny for me because the longer I live away from Toronto, obviously the more space comes between me, my life now, and that life. But also it's a nice moment to remember how far I've come. But anyways, back to what we were talking about. more fragile, prone to disruption, and easily stabilized. So I do feel like, yeah, you'll have the outliers of women that still have friends from childhood. And I shouldn't even say they're outliers because I actually think that's pretty common. One thing I do notice with those women specifically is those relationships more often than not are held together because they've known each other so long, not necessarily because they've grown together and they are still able to connect in their current iteration. I will say that that's just me being a fly on the wall and observing women's friendships. That's kind of what I'll say about that. Versus men, I don't think so. I think that they're still able to connect in their current iteration. Now, I will say, again, as someone who does pay attention, someone who's deeply curious, and someone who's deeply inquisitive, is that men often just have less iterations of themselves in their life. Like, I can talk to a woman who's 40 and we can talk about literally different eras of her life, and truly a caterpillar to butterfly to back to caterpillar to butterfly, like true like blooming, right? In so many different moments. I'm gonna be honest, like when you talk to men, especially straight men, like I just don't get as many of those moments, if at all. And maybe it's not that they're not having them, but they can't really articulate them. My wild guess and my wild assumption is that it's because they're not giving themselves the space to have those iterations, if that makes sense. This isn't a I'm gonna shit on men podcast. I mean, even though I'm a misandrist, I will say that. But I'm just going to speak to what I see and what I have seen as a woman who's lived this life and has talked to a lot of men. And like I said, is deeply curious about the psychology of women and men and the dynamics in friendships and relationships. Prone to disruption and easily destabilized. Yes. Especially when we're talking about girl groups. So your threesomes, your foursomes, your fivesomes. Absolutely prone to disruption and easily destabilized. We used to have the best girl gang in my late teens, early 20s. We were partying regularly. We had so much fun. Like, I'm talking, this was back in the day when clubs used to have like weekly events, right? Like Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturdays, whatever. But especially if you were into like dance hall and stuff, like you were more going to like ticketed events. Like that was your thing. So I'm talking like buying the tickets ahead of time, planning outfits, like getting on MapQuest, downloading the directions to drive there. Yes, I'm showing my age. Like there was a life before Google Maps. Like just real fun OG shit. We used to have the best girl gang. And everything was great until these two girls that used to be best friends fell out. This is weird because it's like, well, I'm close with this girl and that's how I got into this group, and they were a foursome, and now they're going to be a threesome because this girl got pregnant and then another girl got pregnant, and it's just kind of like, it just literally all fell apart. And I think if that were to happen now in my 30s, the group wouldn't have fallen apart. But we were in our early 20s and it was just kind of like, okay, now we're all just going to splinter off and do our own things. I know that pregnancy does change friendships, and that's probably something I will talk about in a different podcast. But when I look at even how the two girls had fallen out, it was like, wow, like 1 week we were all together and having a good time, and 2 weeks later, there are no plans. There's nothing in the diary. Like, we're not hanging out anymore. And I just feel like I can't even think of a guy group, and I've known guy groups. The guy groups that I know have fallen out has only been money. Like, that's it. Like, he took his money, he stole his money, he's acting like he didn't get paid, like something like that. I feel like that's the only thing I know, like guy groups falling out over. And it's like, yeah, just the whole group mashup. And I just feel like fragile, prone to disruption, easily destabilized. It could be the littlest thing. Like you've got a group full, you got 4 girls, they're all friends, they're all in college, and one girl drops out. Group is destabilized. Like, group is destabilized from that. You got 4 girls, they're all friends, and maybe they're all overweight, and one girl loses the weight naturally or, through the help of some GLPs. Group is destabilized. Because there's an identity formed with that group, and there's an identity formed with the group in college, or there's an identity formed with 4 single girls, and now one girl gets engaged. And I think women hold on to those labels and those identities far more than men do, and far stronger than men do, and even to our own detriment. And the question is, like, why do we place so much pressure on these relationships? Like, why do we have to be clones? And I don't mean in a physical sense, but But then when you're younger, a lot of it is in a physical sense. We dress alike, we wear the same brands, we wear the same clothes. Mean Girls, you know what I mean? Like, this is what we wear. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. Like, there's a lot of that when you're younger. And then you think when you get to be an adult, like it's all gone, but it's not. It's just different. Now it's like we have similar type of jobs, we have similar type of money, we have similar type of degrees, we have similar type of spouses, we have similar type of marital statuses. Why can't we give room and space and leverage to be completely different from our friends and still find common ground in the way that men do? And I think these kind of false barriers, these kind of false levels that don't really mean much when we're talking about two people being in community together actually make. And just to end on that point, I think that male friendships don't have that kind of rigidity, and there's a little bit more space and freedom to be yourself. Now, yes, I know the other part of that is that men will watch their friends do serious fuck shit, do serious, like, morally questionable things and say nothing. I don't agree with that at all. And actually, I think that's very telling of a man. Like, if you are a happily married man and you're fine to kiki and kick up your feet and laugh with your friend who's doing some weird shit and you're not calling him on it, I don't like that. And I don't respect that in a man. Like, a man should be able to say what is right and what is wrong with his whole chest. I'm not saying you don't have to be friends with that person anymore. I'm not saying that, because people are flawed and life is short, but it's also very long, and you're going to go through different phases and spaces. But you should, if this is your good friend, you should be telling them the truth. So I know that that is in someone's mind, because it would be in my mind as well. But it gives them freedom to be friends and to be more candid and to be more fluid, to even be able to tell your friend that, to have space to tell your friend that. We'll wrap up this point with this question. Do you value your friends for who they are, or do you rank them? And is there a way that you can get out of that hierarchy? Okay, quote number 3. So this is by Dr. Anna Machin, I think. And the quote is, "The only questions to ask are you enjoying this friendship? Is it reasonably reciprocal? And does it largely bring you joy?" So obviously, does it largely bring you joy? Are you enjoying this friendship? Those are kind of self-explanatory. I don't believe in being friends with someone and those questions aren't like a yes. Like, if you don't enjoy the friendship, what the fuck are we even talking about here? Like, that's like really crazy. You need to just check yourself or be radically honest about why you're in the friendship, you know? Does it largely bring you joy? Of course. And that doesn't mean like you have to be bouncing off the walls with someone, but it's like, I like being with this person. I don't dread hanging out with this person. We can have good times together, whether it's doing this, doing that, whatever. Now you may feel like, okay, I want to expand the friendship a little bit. And that's great. Make that intention. Start with that. See if it's received, so on and so forth. But the question I want to harp on and kind of dig deeper on is it reasonably reciprocal? And I love that word of reasonably, because it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that things are not always going to mirror each other. Like, I scratch your back 5 times and you scratch my back 5 times. And if you scratch my back 4 times, this is not a reciprocal relationship. Like, it's not always going to look like that. It's just like in dating. People always say like men and women are equal. And it's like, of course they're equal. They're equal because we're both human beings on planet Earth. We are equal, but men and women are not the same. And often in your friendships, even though we're talking about maybe 2 women or 2 men, they are not the same. Like, what your friend can offer you might not always be the exact same thing that you offer them, and that is okay. Also, reasonably has context into what is going on in life. What your single friend who is unmarried and has no children and lives in the heart of the city in a condo can offer you socially will likely look very different from your friend who's maybe single and has 2 children under 5, or your friend who is widowed and has no children but lost her husband and is sifting through wills and dealing with probate lawyers. Like, context is very important. Your friend who is single with 2 kids under 5 and is holding it down and holding her own might be able to offer you something that looks radically different than your friend who's taking care of her elder parent. Like, life is short, but it's also long, and we need to give space for things, right? Context. Your friend who likes to party and messages you on a Thursday and says, let's go to Zanzibar next month, might not be able to offer you the same thing as your friend who lives around the corner and just bought a home. Context, okay? Use your brain. Respond to things instead of reacting to things. Take yourself out. One thing I always remind myself when I tell people is like, instead of looking at the situation so micro, look at it a little bit more macro. Get bird's eye view with it. Not everything has to be super minute and specific. Let's look at the bigger picture. Ultimately, do you like this person? Or maybe you like this person, but you don't like the friendship. Do you enjoy the friendship? Is it reasonably reciprocal? If at the end of the day, like once everything is laid out, the good, the bad, the ugly, do you still want to be friends with this person? That's really what matters. So I think that's really important. And I think that's something that men know very well, that, yeah, he might be a bit of an asshole, but I'm not going to stop talking to him. Like, yeah, he might be a bad drunk, but I'm not going to stop talking to him. I just probably won't like drink with him anymore. Or, yeah, now that he's married, he's a bit weird, but like, he's still the homie. That is literally how they operate. Like, that's how they think. That's it, guys. It's not even anything to like really dissect. And you might be like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. And that's fine. That's fine. But I would challenge you to say, could it work for you? Also, why doesn't it work for you? Is it your ego? Is it your ego? And then thirdly, are you asking someone for something, to do something, to be something, one, that they're just not, but also are you asking someone for something and to do something that you yourself are not giving? I want to harp on that a lot because I think sometimes we really will be up our own asses and we think that we are giving 10 out of 10 in everything. And it's like, are you though? Are you though? Are you giving the friendship, or are you giving someone something that they don't value like how you value, right? This goes into the heavily reciprocal thing that is really big for women. Like, maybe you're always the one making the effort to go out, and maybe your friend doesn't care about that. Like, maybe they don't care. And maybe it's not that they don't care to go out, but like maybe they don't care to like make the effort to like pick a new spot and get out of the city or go to a new area or try a new dish, or maybe they don't really care. Like, they care about talking regularly through text and phone calls, So they're like, yeah, I'm happy to go, but that's definitely something that you're going to have to take on. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to be friends with her or that you can't connect with her, because she should have some value in your life in different ways, but maybe you need to find other type A friends, I also think that one thing I've learned as someone who has actively sought out new friendships, especially in my 30s, and first of all, when you move abroad, like, you ain't got no choice, because it single-handedly will determine how your experience is. Like, anyone who says, yeah, I moved abroad and like it wasn't for me, and like you were there, I would say like less than 5 years, the first thing I'm going to ask you is like, who did you move with and what did your network look like? And I can guarantee you, like 9 times out of 10, like, they didn't have strong ties and they weren't making an effort either. It just is what it is. I'll literally die on this hill if you make an effort. And a lot of people don't make an effort because a lot of people don't know how to make friends, because they made friends in school and they made friends at work and they never really tried after that. What I will say is that you should be expanding your network and you should be making new friends. And I think it's something you should always do because it's like a muscle. Just like how creativity is a muscle, and we talk about muscle memory. If you used to play sports in high school or in college, or used to dance, you're a bit rusty, but once you get back into it, you're like, okay, I got this. Like riding a bike. Your ability to meet new friends and talk to people is also a muscle. It's like dating is a muscle. I truly believe that. It's the same idea. If you don't use it, you lose it, but you can always get it back. If you are a type A type of person and you are noticing that your friend is not reciprocal in that nature, and I'm basically saying that maybe you should accept that person for who they are and that flaw that you deem that they have, and also go and find more type A friends. This is also like kind of touched on in the article, and the article highlights that men often lose friendships over time because they don't take the initiative to maintain them. And one thing I would say women are really good at is we are good at maintaining friendships, sometimes for better or for worse, but overall we are. But in that lesson lies something very valuable for women too. Like in women friendships, we often expect mutual effort to be automatic. Like I shouldn't have to tell you, you should know. And this also carries into dating, which again, separate podcast. But like men, we truly, truly like could benefit from just owning the role as the planner, the checker-inner, the one who reaches out, especially when life gets busy. Like, what if that is just your role? It's not that your friend is being greedy or lazy or doesn't care about you or doesn't value the friendship. Like, what if that is just your role? That is your thing. And I get it. Sometimes it gets annoying. It does. I can sometimes be the planner because I'm genuinely interested in finding new restaurants, finding new things to do. And I wasn't always that way. When you move abroad, you want to experience things, you want to see things, you want to do things. Like, I don't want to be in my house every day, bored as hell, not knowing where I live. You can meet people in London now that know me, and they will be impressed with how many neighborhoods in London I know and how many neighborhoods I've been to, because I'm interested. I care. I hate the fact that I would live somewhere and I don't really know nowhere. Like, I know my little bubble and that's it. I find that to be like an ick for men or women. Like, you've lived here how long and you've never been past like zone 2? Like, no, this is an amazing place. Explore, expand. And to me, that says so much about someone who's open-minded, someone who likes to do things, someone who takes initiative in their own life. People think these things are little things, but it's the little things that make up somebody. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. But the point is like, what if that is your role? And I'll tie it back to me again, because it's like, sometimes it does get annoying for me and a lot of my relationships. Like, I'm the advice giver. I am the one that people call when they want advice. Like, I need something. One of my friends, she'll say, you're my smartest friend. Like, whenever I have like a thought that I need someone smart to weigh in on, like, I will call you. So, and I love that. That is like a very elite compliment to me. And of course, like, I feel that way about myself, hence why I'm yapping on a podcast. But I do get that a lot. But then it's like, sometimes I need that. Like, I need a friend who's like, oh my God, please show me something that I'm not seeing. And not that my friends can't do that or they won't do that, but I understand that desire. Or it's like, the flip side was sometimes I would have friends that that's all they saw me for. And it's like, okay, but I also want to go out. I want to have a good time. I want to go on trips, XYZ. I'm just as capable of being that friend as well. So I'm not speaking out of turn. I do understand, but also, like, if we tie into Byron Katie's work, which I referenced on last week's podcast, is what if you were to just accept what is? Like, this is what it is. So what are you going to do with it? You know? Just something to think about. And another quote I want to say is, you do have to be proactive. Just because your mates will never bring up the fact you're crap, it doesn't mean you should be crap. Also important, you know? Just because your friends aren't saying like, hey girl, you could kind of pull your fucking weight, doesn't mean that you're pulling your weight, and also doesn't mean that you don't have to. So, moral of the story is, don't be a shitty friend. If you care about your friends, let them know that you care about them in the ways that you think would make sense. Or also a little text message that's like, hey, I just wanted to say, like, I love being your friend. You're my homegirl. Simple. And also, you don't always have to harp on the reciprocity. Like, sometimes you can take the lead. Friendship will not always be 50-50 also, just like in your relationships. And this is another thing, like, all the grace you guys give men, give that to your friends. Because you guys give men a lot of fucking grace. Let me say that again. You guys give men a lot of fucking grace. Give an ounce of that to your girlfriends. 1, who have your best interests at heart. Let's just be so for real. 2, who statistically, if we talk pure numbers, unless that man is going to be your husband, statistically, those friendships will outlive this relationship. And then finally, I want to talk about a point that I brought up in the very beginning, which is graceful exits. So, women, if you are going to end the friendship, this is a tough one. Women are more likely to have friendship breakups that are intense, emotional, and abrupt. And this is often stemming from perceived betrayal, a shift in closeness, a lack of reciprocity, and it's usually something that builds up. Men, on the other hand, tend to let friendships drift, or they resolve conflicts a little bit more simply without over analyzing like every minute detail. This is something, again, totally talking of myself because I'm a woman too. I think that the lesson here is that women can break up better and that not everything needs to be like a catalyst. Now, as someone who has had a friend break up with me in a very like formal way, and then I am someone who has just drifted from, like intentionally drifted from a friend in a very intentional and obvious way. I've kind of been on both sides of it. I think sometimes friendships, like, they don't need the postmortems, you know? Like, there's a lot of value in giving each other grace, addressing conflicts quickly, being straight up with your friends, and then, like, moving on. Like, even if you're still a bit bruised, like, you know, you get hurt, you get bruised. The bruise doesn't go away in a day, but you don't have to let it continue to hurt you. There's a great quote that it's like, speak from the scar, not from the wound, which basically means speak from the lessons learned, not from a place of hurt, you know? And that takes time. It can take time, but you have to recognize where you're speaking from. And whether you're talking about something that happened 2 weeks ago or 10 years ago, you have to know where it's coming from. Is it coming from the scar or is it coming from the wound? I think this is a good like metric to always like, or should I say barometer? I don't know. I'm going to say metric. Is it metric? I'm thinking more like, no, barometers for pressure. I'm going to say metric. Sorry, guys. Words mean things, and I know I be rambling here, but I genuinely always want to get it right, even though sometimes I listen to the playback and I'm like, what am I saying? Anyways, this is a good metric for you to think about. Am I speaking from the scar? Am I speaking from the wound? And maybe you're not past the wound yet. Maybe you're in that like kind of middle space. And that's fine, but you have to recognize that. You have to own that. I do think that a lot of women are avoidant when it comes to their friends. I think a lot of women are actually like pretty avoidant in general, but I will say like, and they're avoidant with their friends and they're avoidant with men in very different ways, but we are not taught how to communicate effectively, especially through conflict with other women, right? I would argue we're probably not taught that with men either, but we're definitely not taught that with women. And it's part of our own like brainwashing and propaganda and socialization as women, because women above all need to be nice, which burn that word to the ground. Like I always say, I'm kind, I'm not nice. Like, because what the fuck is nice? Like, nice is people pleasing, nice is pacifying, nice is putting everyone's needs above your own, nice is putting yourself in danger as a woman. I can go on and on and on, but I won't. So the aggressive part of me, the passionate part of me, the leader part of me is like, I don't like the idea of things just drifting, but the adult side of me, the mature side of me knows that sometimes that's just a much better way to handle things and it's a much safer way, and I've done it. So it's not like I'm saying something that I've never done. Sometimes things just need to drift, and you know what it is, I know what it is, you haven't reached out, I haven't reached out, and it's all good. That doesn't mean that there's beef, that doesn't mean that there's anger, that doesn't mean that there's serious tension. It is just letting the relationship take its own course, right? Letting things flow. And I think men are better at that. And I think that's something that we can do, not from a place of being avoidant, from a place of also not holding on to things too tightly that don't need to be held on too tightly. But then on the flip side, being honest with your friend, especially if this is a friend that you intend to keep, this is very important. You're a human being. Humans live in conflict. You will have conflict with everyone in your life. You have conflict with your own children, your parents, your siblings, your work. Like, this is real life, and you need to be able to get through it and get to the other side, because if you don't, you will always be starting new relationships, men and women. So I think that that's really important. I hope that that makes sense. And like the final point that they put in the article is they're encouraging men to get physical. Like, physical appreciation, I guess I'll say, like with women is so much stronger and obvious than with men, right? This goes into like just propaganda and homophobic propaganda. Let's just be real. Like, and I will say, side note, living in London, men are more affectionate in Europe than they are in North America. So like, it's like endearing when I see men like give each other like a real hug here, or like roughhousing, just like in an endearing way that you can just tell is like playful. And obviously, as adults, we get touched less than we do as children. And there's like a huge issue with that because we all need like affection and like physical affection. And kids are so loved on, right? And as they get older, it's like less and less and less so. And there's like a lot of reasons for that. But in the article, it says how a 20-second hug, something many women do without even thinking, boosts your serotonin levels, makes you feel happier and less stressed. Like, why are we not doing this? And it says like you might see men hugging, but they're slapping each other on the back, and you're giving this hug, but you still have to keep your armor on. It's just like, it is okay to hug your friends. This is also why some women feel such a burden in their relationship, because like men use them for so many of their own needs that they could be getting from their friends. And women don't use men in the same way and to the same level because women have friends. Like, and as a woman who has many friends, there's very few friends that I'm like physical with. I will hug my friends, of course, like, the kiss on the cheek, especially here. But I can think of like maybe one friend that I used to have where we would like be like close, like maybe she would like play with my hair, I'd play with her hair in like a very loving, nurturing, maternal way. So I'm not saying that like all women do this and they do this to the highest degree with all their friends. But there are other elements, like I'll dance with my friends. But the idea is that physical affection, genuine wanted physical affection, makes you happier. And that's something that men could really learn. So if you have a man in your life, encourage him to hug his homeboys. Make it a genuine hug. Take a deep breath in that hug. I know this sounds crazy. It sounds really woo. Sounds very hippie. It sounds like beaded bracelets and necklaces and white linens. But I'm telling you, it's real. So my final thought that I will leave you with, and something that you can think about for your own friendships and when you're reflecting, or even if you're journaling, is maybe the sweet spot is somewhere in between, like openness and love. Just love, honestly, that's the best word to use, that we bring as women, and like the vulnerability and the emotional space that we hold for each other. But then the ease, the grace, and the latitude that men have in their friendships, where you've got both of those things, I think is the ideal sweet spot. So I'm going to link the article in the show notes for you. Again, it's by Claire Cohen. It was written in The Guardian back in 2024, but definitely worth a read. And it's an easy read too. And I want you to think about what is something that you could do in your friendships to be a better friend. Like, what's something you can let go of to be a better friend as well. So I hope you guys liked this episode of the Sisterhood Chronicles. We love to talk about friendships here because friendships are the key to life. And good friends make the world go round. Good friends make your bad days brighter. Good friends pick you up from the airport. Good friends are irreplaceable. They are the best. And the point is, how can we be better friends? Using tools and experiences from the other sex, which is men. So implement that into your friendship groups. Let me know how it goes. I'm your host, Shantel Russo. This is the Sage Sorority. I love you guys. I will talk to you next week, and I'll still be in Dubai, still in the heat. Don't be jealous, but have an amazing week. Bye.